Bom dia, estamos.
Begin the Global Forum. Allow me to salute you in Portuguese. Bom dia a todos, bem-vindos ao Porto e ao...
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Porto and to the Global Forum.
So, on behalf of IKEA, founder of the Schools2030 program and the municipality of Porto, we welcome you to the Schools2030 Global Forum, the second edition. So we are excited to be here. So feel very welcome, and I hope we enjoy all the 3 days and 2 more for some of us, and take the best of what we together put in place for the Global Forum. So, His Excellency, the Minister of Education of Portugal, His Excellency, the Minister of Education from Kyrgyzstan, that will be following Portugal, organizing the Global Forum, His Excellency, the Secretary of State, Anna Sofia, welcome. Dear guests, dear Schools2030 teams, teachers, students, please feel as one group, and we will interact and participating actively. We need everybody to this to be successful. So enjoy it, and I will pass the floor to my colleague, Rowan. Thanks, Alexandra.
Good morning, everybody, and just to echo Alexandra, a huge welcome to this, our now second annual Schools2030 Global Forum. Thank you so much for joining from all across the world. The theme of this year's forum is inclusive schools and pluralistic learning societies. And this is a theme that is really close to the heart of the Schools2030 program, to Aga Khan Foundation, and to the Aga Khan Development Network more broadly. For us, inclusion and pluralism means that we recognize the differences that make us all human, the differences in our language, our culture, where we're from, our experiences and our expertise, and the differences in the way that we learn. And every day through the Schools2030 program, our teachers and partners and teams are working to support more inclusive and pluralistic schools through a focus on teacher agency. We do this through assessments, where we co-design tools that support teachers to identify and really understand the diversity of their learners. Through design, where we co-design and work with schools and teachers to create new practices and new innovations to meet those diverse learning needs. And we do this through showcasing, through events like this, where we amplify and really celebrate all the diverse learning experiences and teaching models from across the 10 Schools2030 countries and beyond. And we're here represented, I think, over 20 countries, many different partners, academics, researchers, teachers, schools, policymakers, civil society actors. So once again, I thank you and welcome you to the forum. I just want to take a moment to talk you through a little bit of the rhythm of these 3 days so you know what to expect. For those of you who were in Tanzania last year, you may recall that we organized a forum that each day was about one step of the Schools2030 model. Day 1 on assess, day 2 on innovate, and day 3 on showcase. This year, we're doing it a little differently. We're having each day focus on one of our key age cohorts. So many of you will know, for Schools2030, we focus on the key transition years, because educational research tells us these are the most important moments in a young person's educational journey. So we focus on the transition from preschool into formal schooling around age 5, from primary school into lower secondary school around age 10, and finally, the end of the secondary school cycle when young people go into either upper secondary, higher education, skills training, and the world of work around age 15. And these are our focal cohorts at Schools2030. So on day 1, we'll have a focus on those early learning environments and how we nurture equity, inclusion, and pluralism in preschools. Day 2, we're going to focus on the formal school system, mostly primary and secondary school. And day 3, we're going to look at pathways outside of formal school, for youth who are not in the formal education system. And although we have these as separate days, the one thing I want to stress is that we also think of these as being intertwined, because the educational journey is ongoing. It's not, of course, bifurcated into these silos. So we think about education and learning as a lifelong and life-wide endeavor at Schools 2030. And you'll see every day, although we start opening panels focused on these age cohorts, in the challenge workshops that follow in the morning and afternoon, actually we'll be looking across the age cohorts and bringing diverse perspectives together into dialogue together. So I really hope, as Alexandra said, the success of the Global Forum is down to the active participation of everyone here. So I really hope you enjoy participating in the challenge sessions as well as listening to the panels. It's an opportunity for all of us to share and to learn together. So I welcome you and thank you once again. And I'd like to hand it over to her, who's going to share a few new features of the Global Forum this year.
So, two things to highlight that is very keen for us. We are celebrating schools education, so we need to celebrate teachers and students. Last year in Dar es Salaam, we celebrate that, but giving the floor to the teachers. So this year we are adding the students. So we have been actively participating and engaging with schools, and we are discussing the declaration, the youth declaration from UNESCO, coming from the Transforming Education Summit. So they will be here and they will have also the opportunity to share their views, their wishes, their ambitions for the quality of education. So they are part of us and they will be here participating actively during the 3 days. So this is something that I would like to ask from you, a round of applause for teachers and students. That's why we are here. Another highlight and very important note, I would invite you to see on the delegate materials the best practice on reducing the impact, the environmental impact of this big event. So we, from the start on organizing the Global Forum, we paid a lot of attention, and we had the event planner working straight with, very close to us. So I would invite you, because on that you can see what we did and what we are inviting you to do during these days, but also after. And if you have new ideas, new behaviors, new things that you think, you believe we can add to that good practice for events, just let us know and we will add that, because that will be benchmarking for the Porto municipality, what is the best practices on environmental responsibility. So please read it and help us to do the best for everything, but also for the environment during the Global Forum. Okay, back to Brian.
Okay, and now we're just about to close our opening, and I have a little activity, a poll for everybody to do. And this I'd like to also note, we'll be doing this throughout the 3 days at various points. We have some very short poll and survey. This is part of our way of evaluating the Global Forum and understanding what we can do to improve in future years, and what is the impact it's having on all of our daily practices. So I'd like to invite you all to please pick up your phone and open the app. And in the main menu of the app, you should see an icon for polls. When you go into the main menu, you should see an icon for polls that you can open up. Once you've opened that up, you should be able to see the first question in our poll. I hope the tech is working. Yes, fantastic. That's excellent news. Okay, and so we have just first one question for everybody, a little brainstorming question. Because Schools 2030, we focus on teacher agency and the role of teachers as really the catalyst for innovation and improvement in learning outcomes. So in your country and in your context, can you give one word to describe the role that teachers play in achieving SDG 4? And I'd like to say that we have about 70 people logged on watching this event virtually right now, and they're also able to go on to the app and participate in this poll. So I can see some things are beginning here, and they're just starting to join. The biggest one I'm seeing right now is fundamentals, so that's good to see. And we'll just take a minute as people put in their word and see what kind of words and language comes up. Fundamental remains a very large one, inspiring, essential. So I see already, I think we have true believers in this room on the value of teachers as really as the linchpin and the center and the heart of the learning experience. Role model, confidence. Confidence is an interesting one, and contextualization. So a lot of interesting words are coming up, and I think it's just an opportunity to think, particularly as we move through our panels and through our sessions, from your own experience as a student and perhaps as an educator, what is the role of teachers and how can we amplify and support that role so that it can be, realized to its full potential? Great, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna move on to the next question. So now we just have 3 very short questions, and those ones you're just going to be asked to do a quick sort of numerical ranking. So let me stop that one. I'm being relied on for technology here, which is, never a safe thing. Oh, wait a second, I'm supposed to terminate. That's it, and start the next one. So hopefully you can see now the next question has appeared on your poll, and you're being asked to rank yourself, your own confidence, with engaging with stakeholders here at the Global Forum. So one of the important things to us at the Global Forum is that we have such a mix of representatives here, from policymakers, civil society, teachers, young people, researchers, and how confident are you, or how comfortable, how common is it for you to have an opportunity to engage with all of the different stakeholders here at the Global Forum? 1 being not at all, and 5 being pretty high. Okay, so we've got a pretty good baseline here. Confidence is pretty high. I don't have anybody so far giving a full ranking of low. Most people are pretty comfortable, somewhat comfortable. Great, let's move on to the next question. So the next question is similar and should appear for you now. So how comfortable are you engaging with diverse stakeholders in your own country around your own insights or experience? How confident and how often, how common is it for you to have the opportunity to engage with different stakeholders in your own country context? I would say actually it's roughly the same now. I thought this one people would rank lower, but we see close to the same. Close to half of people feel relatively comfortable with it, maybe a little bit less. Great, and I think I have just one final question for you. So this one comes down to practices. So in all of your context, whether you're a researcher or a teacher or a policymaker, how confident are you in leading on design in education and innovation in education, whether it's around an innovative research project or a new innovative practice in your classroom, or pushing for certain policy areas? How confident are you in your context? Great, actually, this is quite interesting. So we have very high confidence in this. So what a strong and great room. We're starting at a very high level. That's a challenge for us because it means, we have to work hard to grow towards our end line, but we can do it. We can do it together. I have confidence. So I'd like to thank you all for participating in that short poll. I should note we have wonderful partners in Kalisa Management Services who are here at the table, sitting over at the back, who will be gathering all the data over the next 3 days and really helping us to understand the value of the Global Forum. So I'm going to terminate this one. And before I leave you, I'd like to say as well that we have a couple of very short questions in a survey that will be shared each day. So if you go into your app menu again, not the polls, but the survey icon, and click on it, you'll see a very short survey for day 1, another for day 2, and another for day 3. If I could ask you just please to take a moment to fill that survey in for day 1. It helps us tremendously just to gather information and feedback and to understand the impact of our event. So thank you very much for your patience on that. Thank you to the tech team for enabling and helping me grow my skills in this area. And with that, I would like to open to our first discussion panel, and I'm absolutely delighted to welcome to the stage my very dear colleague, Nafisa Shekhova, who is the Global Co-Lead for Education and Early Childhood Development at Aga Khan Foundation. And she has a very strong panel of speakers who will be joining here on the stage to discuss how we might foster more inclusive, equitable, and pluralistic early learning environments. So please welcome Nafisa and colleagues to the stage.
Here? Can you hear me? Ah, okay, they're on. Good. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I don't think I need to introduce myself again. I think Brahma did that really well. I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm delighted to chair this plenary session with such a distinguished guest and on a topic that's very dear to my heart. Let me introduce the panelists before we dive into the conversation. I'm very pleased to welcome Her Excellency Ana Sofia Antunes, Secretary of State for the Inclusion of Persons with Disabilities, Portugal. His Excellency João Costa, Minister of Education, Portugal. Dr. Abby Rakes, Associate Professor and founder of ECD Measure, University of Nebraska. Martin Benavides, Director of International Institute for Education Planning, UNESCO. And Naima Adam, Program Lead with the Madrasa Early Childhood Program, Kenya. Thank you so much all for being here today. Our focus today revolves around a critical question. How might we foster more inclusive, equitable, and pluralistic learning in and through the early years? When we designed the School 2030 initiative with our education team and partners, there was no doubt regarding the inclusion of the early years cohort within the program. ECD has been a critical priority for the Aga Khan Development Network for many decades, and our School 2030 partners have consistently invested in the early years. Furthermore, the Sustainable Development Goal 4 includes a specific target that calls for ensuring that all girls and boys have access to quality early childhood development, care, and pre-primary education so that they are ready for primary education. School 2030 seeks to operationalize SDG 4 in classroom from the bottom up by amplifying the insights, creativity, and resilience of our dedicated teachers with the aim of achieving the quality learning opportunities for all. As we delve into the discussion today, I invite our panelists to bring their perspective and experiences and explore the challenges and opportunities within this crucial phase of education. Let us begin with taking a closer look at the progress we've made so far in achieving SDG 4.2. So we'll start with Abby. Abby, how would you evaluate our current progress, challenges, and global performance in relation to achieving SDG 4.2?
Yes, thank you for that great question, and thanks for the opportunity to join you. So, as you said, Nafisa, the Sustainable Development Goals really brokered a totally different type of conversation globally on a number of different topics, including education. And the inclusion of early childhood into that global agenda, even though now it's been a number of years, I just want to emphasize exactly how groundbreaking that was, to acknowledge the importance of early childhood, really building on the science and the momentum around that. So the agenda then put forward two key indicators that we would then track collectively to measure our global progress. One is the percent of children who are developmentally on track, and the second is access to pre-primary education, again, so that children are ready for primary school. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about those two indicators. We're about halfway through. So how are we doing? So I've got some good news, reflecting the growing understanding of the importance of early childhood care and education. UNESCO reported in 2020, which is the last year that we've got global data available, that 75% of children have access to some form of early childhood care and education before age 5. So that's fantastic. And that number is increasing over time. It shows a steady upward momentum across all different regions of the world, and that's great news. If countries reach their goals, we will be at 95% of children by 2030. And those are goals that individual countries have set. So now I've got a little bit of bad news. Only about 1/3 of countries are on track to reach that goal. So if they reach it, we'll be at 95%, but really most of them at this point in time are not on track. Either they're not making very quick progress, or conversely, there's just no data at all to measure progress. So that's one challenge that we've got. Of course, COVID posed an enormous challenge. It's estimated that 19 billion lost days of instruction took place in early childhood system during COVID. And as a result, we have an additional 11 million children who are not developmentally on track. So now we also need to keep in mind some of the losses that took place during COVID. Finally, we have very little information about the number of children who are developmentally on track. We only have about 1/3 of the countries who are reporting those data, and we don't know very much at all about inclusion. So we have some signs of good news and a lot of things at this point that we're still not sure of. Most importantly, at a global level, we know almost nothing about the quality of instruction. That's something that was not monitored as part of the global agenda, and so we have a lot of work to do to understand what's happening in those settings. We know, on the good news side, that 97% of countries report some kind of quality monitoring for early childhood. So there's a tremendous opportunity for us to dig more deeply into what's happening within individual countries to figure out what's going on with quality. We have an opportunity as well to continue supporting private facilities and community-based facilities that support many families in early childhood education. And so we also need to do more to understand what teachers are experiencing. We know that teachers are reporting lots of challenges, including shortages of materials and long days. So we have an opportunity then to dig into that a little bit more deeply. So given both the challenges that we face and the opportunities and the growth that we've seen, here are a few thoughts on where we go from here. So first of all, again, acknowledging the tremendous momentum forward in early childhood care and education in many parts of the world. It's just really, really fantastic news. We need more investment in understanding quality. And it's so great that we have this opportunity to meet here today, because understanding quality means understanding teachers, understanding schools, and having that information feed back up to the global level. So we really need to think collectively, how do we summarize what's happening, all of these innovations that are happening in schools at the community level, and make sure that that information is shared globally. And that's one thing that I'm really excited about for this next phase, is that the SDGs were sort of top down, of like, these are the global indicators, now the countries go forward. And I think here we're really have an opportunity to say, okay, let's flip that around. Let's think about what's happening at the school level and community level, and translate that information back up to our global leaders and our national leaders. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Is it working? Yeah. Thank you so much, Andy, for providing such a good summary of the global the overview. I think we'll go to a country that's doing statistically quite really well, according to the SDG progress report. Minister Costa, according to the report, as of 2022, 97% of children have access to pre-primary education in Portugal. The statistic is impressive. How does this figure reflect access to high quality pre-primary education? Could you kindly provide some insights into the progress that have been made in this regard, as well as any challenges that Portugal is facing to ensuring sustaining the provision of quality pre-primary education for all children?
Thank you, Nafisa. Good morning, everyone. Let me say welcome to Portugal. It's very nice to have you here after Tanzania and to see all these beautiful faces again. And let me especially greet all the Aga Khan team for keeping us alive and providing these very rich forums of discussion, and to also say hi to all the teachers and students who are present, with a special word for the Portuguese members here. I'm sorry, I had to give this special word. I think that when we look at the progress that Portugal made, this has to do with determination. So from the moment we signed the Declaration of Salamanca, our different governments never gave up on the integration of students, children who have some kind of disability, some kind of impairment. And this put us in this comfortable position when Ana Sofia and I started working on a new law on inclusive education some 6 years ago. We wanted to be more ambitious, and we wanted to move from integration into inclusion. That was the step we wanted to take. And what we mean by this, what we meant in this legislation, it's very ambitious, very difficult. It involves a mindset that you don't change by writing a law. It really involves lots of communication, showcase best practices. And what we mean by this step from moving from integration to inclusion. So indeed in 2017, we already had these numbers, 97% of children attending regular schools. But this did not mean that they were included. The best lesson I had to distinguish integration from inclusion, I had it in a school from kids and from a teacher. We have every year we have this day that we simulate an earthquake, and we teach kids how to act in the presence of an earthquake. And I visited two classes, second grade, so 7-year-olds, and by sheer coincidence, in the two classes there was a child in a wheelchair, both with the same kind of impairment. In one of the classes, there was a child, when the bell rang signaling the earthquake, there was a child who ran to his colleague, grabbed him from the wheelchair, dragged him along the room, and went under the table protecting his friend. In the other class, there was an adult who turned the wheelchair so that the kid could watch the other ones doing the simulation of the earthquake. So this last one was integrated, and the other one was included. And the lesson is that inclusion has several features. First, it requires more work, much more work, more preparation. It requires a very beautiful aspect, which is when you include, it's not only the included child that gains, it's also the others. So inclusion is a project that involves everyone. And so the step we took in defining this legislation involves, I will single out some aspects. One is the discussion of the concept of inclusion. What do we mean by inclusion? And for us, it was very clear that when we talk about inclusion in education, we are talking about access to learning, access to the curriculum. So we cannot think of inclusion as a side dish. You define the curriculum and then you talk about inclusion. That will never work out. So we wanted to redesign our curriculum. At the same time, we were redesigning our legislation on inclusive education. And when we define exclusion as barriers in access to the curriculum, all of a sudden you're no longer talking only about impairment, or you're talking about all the children that face any barrier. And this can be children from low socioeconomic background, can be migrants, can be children who are going through some temporary emotional distress, You involve mental health issues, and after the pandemic, we see those growing in schools. And because we are no longer talking about some categorized or clinically defined types of exclusion, this becomes much more difficult, and that's why we are so ambitious, because all of a sudden you only manage if you look at the specific features of each child, and this calls for a more individualized design of plans and measures for each child. The second aspect that I think is not a detail, and that's why I opt for telling you about this rather than talking about the specific measures that are adopted in schools, is that when we're talking about quality education, we have to talk about inclusive education. And this is at odds with what the media makes when they are producing school rankings on the basis of the results of national exams. We don't care about these rankings. To be honest, I dislike them very much because when we talk about quality, we are not talking about a school that grabs the privileged kids and shows that they are still privileged by the end of the program. A school, and we have some here from Portugal, a school that receives students from very disfavored backgrounds and takes them as further as possible normally works way more than the schools that appear on the top of the rankings. So when we are talking about quality education, we are talking about inclusive education. And if we disentangle these two, we are missing the focus, and we are missing the goal of education. Then there is another aspect that is, because this is so difficult, we need to show that it is possible. And we have to showcase with the schools that make the difference. We have to share the best practices. There are schools in which coming from, for instance, one of the biggest excluded groups in Portugal is the children from the Roma communities. And there are schools in which this is not a problem. And in other schools, this is a big problem. So we have to make these schools communicate and see what the different schools are making. Now, you asked me, and I will close here, about the challenges and the difficulties. One is always resources, because inclusion requires more funding, more resources, and also the mindset around the management of resources. If we keep saying that inclusion is about the school psychologist or the special educator in the school, we'll never have enough resources. So one thing we're trying to do is that inclusion is everyone's responsibility, from the non-teaching staff until the other students. The school library, and this is something that we've been doing, all the programs that go, that work around the school, so school sports, our National Plan for Arts Education, the network of school libraries, all the programs were invited to commit themselves to be active contributors to the goals of the inclusive education legislation. And this makes a difference because there is a commitment by all the members of the school community, but also the development of an awareness that these are not the kids to be put on a corner of the school with one adult. They are everyone's responsibility. Then another big challenge is the cultural challenge. And this involves many people. It involves some teachers, involves the parents of the other kids. Everyone agrees on the principles of inclusion. But then I don't want that kid in my kid's class. And that's where you see that this is maybe the toughest nut to crack. And so because the law is very ambitious, we never had we never expected it to be ready in 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 years. So we are monitoring it. We asked the assistance from OECD, from from the European Agency for Special Needs and Inclusive Education, so that we have guidelines, so that we define milestones, and we can see at every moment where we are.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Minister, for providing us such an important discussions around the inclusion. Secretary Antonish, ECD is a multi-sectoral theme that necessitates strong coordination and collaboration among the various ministries responsible for the early years. However, in most countries, achieving such collaboration among the various ministries has proven challenging, often resulting in inadequate prioritization and funding for the early childhood development. How does Portugal address the issue of collaboration among the various ministries, and what measures have been taken to prioritize that collaborations, and if there's any valuable insights and lessons that you'd like to share with us all today? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. Let me start obviously by thanking this kindly invitation by the AGACAM team to be here today on behalf of Minister of Labour, Solidarity and Social Inclusion, whom I'm representing here. I'd like to congratulate the organization of this fantastic event, my colleagues of panel, and all of you that are here today. And let me start by telling that if it was possible in 2017 approved a new legislation related to how to get a deeper inclusion of children with disabilities in our schools in Portugal. It only was possible, I think, because the Portuguese government decides in some moments to get obviously a Secretary of State for Inclusion of People with Disabilities. It was an important challenge, an important decision from our Prime Minister, but also it also was possible because at that time the Secretary of State for Inclusion of People with Disabilities, me, could have the opportunity to work with some Secretary of State for Education. That was that guy here on my right. Now he is the Minister, Excellency. But it was only possible because we do a very good team, I think. And we have the capacity and the strength to go against some ideas and some positions that defend at that time, and sometime probably today still, I don't know, that we are trying to give a step bigger than our leg, and we are trying to do something that was not possible. And we always thought that it was possible. We still think that is possible. And we try in our work to show it to all the school communities, the teachers, the families, the children, the other pupils, the directors, that is possible. And when we have the capacity to have in the school community some heads in the correct mindset, for instance, and the directors, we have the possibility to have more inclusive schools, more successful pathways from our students with disabilities. Well, but I think that in my panel I have many people who knows much more than I about education. So let me focus today in a parallel subject that is the necessarily cooperation between education and social protection, because I think that we only can get a real success in our politics of bring children to the primary schools if we have the correct support, the personal, the familiar, and the contextual support to children. When we invest in this pre-primary schools or these pre-primary politics, what we are trying to show, to say is that it's fundamental to guarantee the precocity and the quality of the interventions as much as early as possible. Because when we lost time in these ages, we will have, of course, the hardest consequences in these children's lives. So in Portugal, we are trying to guarantee a permanent link and collaboration between social protection and education. Not only considering the social protection benefits, but also the social services. And let me give you some examples. The most important examples that I think I can give you. If we think about the specific social benefits that we create to help families with children in the earlier ages, we can talk about the monthly benefit that we give to all the low-income families with children. We create this year, 2023, the child guarantee, that is a specific benefit that we only attribute to families in risk of poverty, and it guarantees that we cannot have any child with less than 100 years per month to live. We also have the social income or basic income, that is a specific income created to deprived families. To get access to this social income or basic income, there's a compulsory condition that all the families have to respect, that is the permanence at schools. And it has a strong impact in the permanence of some children at schools. First of all, children from minorities and in situations of risk of poverty. We also create in 2017 a special benefit, the social inclusion benefit, that is exclusive to children with disabilities. And we have also the special education allowance, that is another benefit exclusive to children with disabilities, and have the propose of pay therapies, and to guarantee that all the therapies that the schools are not able to give to the children, we will support that, and we will work in a link the two parts of the question to give this support to the children. Considering services or social services, let me only underline three that are the most important in my point of view. The early intervention system in childhood, that is a system where health, social protection and educational services work together to guarantee to all the children with disabilities, but not only, also the children with some development delay that can be a result from an economical or social hard context, can get access to these kind of therapies, and that also the families can get access to some guidance and some support to help them children to pursue their ways at school. Secondly, I'd like to underline that we have good network between kindergartens and support systems, support services, who guarantees a good connection between work and families systems and supports. In Portugal, last year we start to guarantee to the families the free access to all children to kindergartens. The families, they don't pay to get their children at kindergartens, and in this moment we have 58,000 of children in this new program that we called Happy Kindergarten. It's not a very fantastic name, but believe me, in Portuguese it works, okay? Happy Kindergarten. And with this program, we soon understood that we didn't have enough places to any children in ages between the birth and 3 years. So now we are investing our funds, the national funds, but also the RRF funds from the Recovery and Resilience funds to increase the numbers of places that we have in kindergartens. In this moment, we have something like 120,000, and we will have the possibility to increase these numbers to 142,000. To finally, only to say that recently we have the capacity to approve the enlargements of the paid parental leaves, not only for mothers, but also to fathers, and to increase the value of these leaves when the two of them have the capacity to divide the times between the two. And I will not talk about inclusive schools because Minister Costa had told the main important things. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Secretary, for providing such a good overview of the and very specific examples of the work that you've been doing in Portugal, and really great examples of how kids and families, especially from the marginalized communities, are supported in Portugal. I'd like to go to Naima from Kenya. Naima, the Madrasa Early Childhood Program has been a long-standing advocate for the early childhood development in the East African region. With the government facing increasing pressure to ensure the provision of free pre-primary education, how can civil society organizations collaborate and support the government and advance their efforts in these areas? Could you please provide insights into the strategies that the Madrasa Early Childhood Program has been employing to enhance access and quality of pre-primary education in East Africa? Thank you.
Thank you, Nafisa, for this wonderful opportunity. Good morning, everyone. I'm honored to be representing the Madrasa Early Childhood Program and speaking about its expertise and experience in enhancing access and provision of quality pre-primary education in East Africa for the past 40 years. Indeed, the Madrasa Early Childhood Program has employed different strategies to ensure this, but today I want to elevate 3 key ones. The first one is we strongly believe in partnerships with the local government, local communities, and other actors and players on the ground in identifying local ECD needs, prioritizing them, identifying relevant resources, and co-delivering program and interventions around pre-primary education. We value and embrace community strength and knowledge, and over the years, we have supported communities' involvement and engagement in their children to support their learning and development, both at schools and at home. This partnership has ensured that the MECP remains at the forefront in providing insights and contributing to conversations around pre-primary education in East Africa. For example, the Madrasa Early Childhood Program in Tanzania sits in the National Curriculum Development Committee. In Kenya and Uganda, the Madrasa Early Childhood Programs participates in public discussions around curriculum reforms. I am proud to share that the Madrasa Early Childhood Program is a recognized and valued ECD partner of choice, if not the only one in East Africa, and has gained a global reputation. Secondly, Nafisa and team, I also want to share that at the Madrasa Early Childhood Program, we value that the teachers are the heart of educational change. They are the agent and drivers of pre-primary education. They are not merely the recipients. Recognizing this, the Madrasa Early Childhood Programs has focused on teacher professional development over the years. This is to ensure that those people that are vested with this responsibility have the adequate knowledge, skills, values, and attitudes to be able to provide quality ECD service to our children. We have been able to do this through engaging the teachers in robust teacher continuous professional development courses and a strong mentorship program for the teachers. As we speak today, 10,000 ECD educators across the East African region have been reached, benefiting over 1 million children in East Africa. Lastly, the MECP program has a strong learning agenda, which has continuously enabled us to pilot, to test, to iterate innovations, and generate evidence that have continued to inform policy and practice across the region. I'm glad to note that Dr. Abiy has also mentioned the fact that we need to have a feedback mechanism so that all these collective efforts that we are making can also inform the global team. So I call upon all of us to join hands in making this a success. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Naima. Thank you. Well, Martin, last year UNESCO and the government of Uzbekistan hosted the World Conference on Early Childhood Care and Education in Tashkent. The conference led to the establishment of the Tashkent Declaration and commitments to action for transforming early childhood care and education. How is the Institute supporting countries to put ECD at the forefront of the education system? Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation to this very important meeting. I'm very happy to be here and to be in this very distinguished panel. We think that declarations are very important, especially for countries where there are a lot of institutional difficulties. To have this kind of declaration help them to put in the agenda priorities that are not always in the forefront of the policies of those countries. But they are clearly not sufficient. We know that day-to-day operations at the ministries are very complicated. There are always urgent, not urgent issues, a lot of interest struggling for having their priorities. So we believe that in order to link declarations with concrete policies, we need to plan priorities, to develop plans, to develop good management of those plans, to develop good monitoring and evaluation of those plans, in order to put the priorities in the forefront of the policies. And this is what the IEP do with different countries. We help them to develop their plans, to follow. We follow the implementation of those plans. We help them to monitor and also to evaluate what they can do. One very important idea for us when we collaborate with countries is to give them a system perspective. To give a country a system perspective doesn't mean to put ideas completely far from schools. On the contrary, we think that we need to avoid the isolation of some very critical priorities, such as early childhood education, by putting them in a framework that allows all the system to work for this priority. For example, how ECD issues coordinate between different sectors. No? In this session, we have heard about a very important coordination between two sectors. That doesn't happen in all the countries that we already know. There is still a separation between sectors. Other articulation that we need to promote is, for example, with teacher training. Teacher training for ECD is not always integrated in teacher training for the whole education system. And a third one is to